Let me tell you something about the market that most traders learn too late. And by the time they learn it, it has already cost them everything. I was 14 years old when I first walked into a brokerage office in Boston. In Boston, I had no money. I had no connections. I had no teacher. No one took my hand and showed me the way. What I had was curiosity, a burning, relentless curiosity, and I had eyes, sharp eyes, eyes that could stare at the ticker tape for hours and see things that other people walked right past, things they never even knew they were missing. Back then, I worked as a board boy. My job was simple. I posted the stock prices on a chalkboard as the numbers came in off the ticker. Every day, hour after hour, price after price. Most boys in that room saw numbers. Just numbers. But I saw something else entirely. I saw behavior. I saw the market breathing. I saw it hesitate, pause, as if catching its breath. I saw it accelerate with sudden urgency. I saw it lie. And then, sometimes, with a quiet dignity, I saw it tell the truth. I started writing those numbers down in a small notebook, not to brag, not to show anyone. I did it because I noticed something that nobody else seemed to care about. The prices moved in patterns, not always, not perfectly, but often enough to matter, often enough to change a life. I was not predicting anything. I was observing. There is a difference, a very important difference, one that took me decades to fully understand, and one that I believe is the reason most traders today are losing money they cannot afford to lose. They are trying to predict the market. They sit at their desks, full of confidence and clever theories, and they try to tell the market what it will do next. I learned early, painfully early, that you cannot predict the market. What you can do is read it, and reading the market is an entirely different skill, one that requires humility instead of arrogance, patience instead of urgency. The market is not a puzzle waiting to be solved. It is not a machine you can figure out once and then operate forever. It is alive. It breathes. It is made of people, millions of them, and it is made of their fear and their hope and their greed and their desperation. Made my first real trade at 15. I put a few dollars into a bucket shop, those small, illegal off-exchange offices where a man could bet on stock prices without actually owning any shares. I was not supposed to be there, but I had been watching prices long enough that I was not guessing. I was reading. That first trade made me a small profit, then another after that. People started noticing. They thought I was lucky. I knew I was not lucky. I was watching. I was waiting. I was acting only when the evidence in front of me was so clear it almost spoke out loud. But here's the thing about early success. It is dangerous. Not because success is bad. Success is good. Early success is dangerous because it teaches you the wrong lesson. It makes a young man believe that trading is easy, that the market rewards cleverness, that all you need is a sharp mind and a little courage. That is not true. That has never been true. And every trader who believes that lesson will eventually pay a very high price to unlearn it. I know, because I paid that price more than once. The first time I lost everything, I was not a boy anymore. I was a man who thought he knew the market. I had been right so many times that I started believing my opinions were facts. I started holding positions that were moving against me because I was convinced I was right and the market was wrong. Let me say that again, slowly, so it settles somewhere deep inside you. I believed I was right, and the sticks market was wrong. That is the most dangerous thought a trader can ever have. The market is never wrong. The market is what it is. It does not care about your analysis. It does not care about your opinion. It does not care about how many hours you studied the charts or how smart you believe yourself to be. The market will move where it moves, and if you are standing in the wrong direction, it will move right through you, without hesitation, without apology, without mercy. I held a position in cotton once. I had a strong opinion about where prices were going. The price started moving against me. Did I exit? No. I added to the position, actually. I told myself I was simply buying at better prices. That is what I told myself. But the truth, the ugly, painful truth, was that I was hoping. I was refusing to accept that I was wrong, Hope is a fine thing in life. In life, hope can sustain you through the darkest of nights. But in trading, hope is a poison. It slips into your thinking quietly, disguised as confidence, and it destroys you, slowly. By the time I finally accepted the reality in front of me, my losses were catastrophic. What should have been a small, manageable loss had become something that wiped out nearly everything I had built. I sat alone that night in the silence of a room that felt much emptier than it was, and I asked myself an honest question. Was the market wrong, or was I wrong? The answer was obvious. It was painful, but it was obvious. The market was never wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong to ignore what the price was telling me. I was wrong to let hope replace observation. I was wrong to let my ego convince me that my opinion was stronger than the evidence. That night changed how I traded. It did not change immediately in practice. Bad habits die slowly, and pride dies even slower. But it changed something fundamental in how I thought about the market. A loss is not a failure. A loss is information. It is the market speaking to you clearly and directly. It is saying your timing is off, or your read is wrong, or the conditions are not what you believe them to be. The market is giving you a message, and that message costs money. The only question is how much you will pay before you listen. A small loss listened to quickly is the price of doing business. A large loss ignored and allowed to grow is the price of pride. And pride in this business is something you simply cannot afford to carry. I made it a rule. When a trade moved against me by a certain amount, I was out. No discussion. No negotiation with myself. No convincing. Out. That rule saved me many times over, not because every trade I exited turned out to be truly lost. Sometimes the price came back and I had exited too early. That happened. But here is what I discovered over years of living inside this market. The trades where the price came back cost me a small amount when I was wrong. The trades where I ignored the rule and held cost me everything when I was right, that I was wrong. The math is simple, the discipline to follow it is not. Trading must be run like a serious business. Not a hobby, not an adventure, not a game, a business. Think about what a real business owner does. He plans. He knows his costs before he opens his doors. He knows how much he can afford to lose before he is in trouble. He does not bet the entire business on a single outcome. He protects the enterprise above everything else, because without the enterprise, nothing else is possible. Most traders do the opposite. They walk into the market with excitement and emotion, chasing after profits, ignoring the risks. They act as if the money they are risking is not real. Or worse, they act as if losing it will somehow be made right by the next trade. It does not work that way. It never works that way. Capital is everything. Capital is your business. Without capital, you have no trades. Without trades, you have no income. Without income, you are finished. The first priority of every serious trader is not to make money. The first priority is to not lose money. Those sound like the same thing. They are not. One is offensive thinking. The other is defensive thinking. And in trading, the traders who think defensively first are the ones who survive long enough to trade off, and so, however, the moment is truly right. I preserved capital obsessively, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for what capital represents. Capital is not just money. Capital is the accumulation of your correct decisions and your disciplined behavior. Every time you lose capital carelessly, you are losing more than money. You are losing the product of your discipline. Protect it. Treat it like the most important asset you have, because it is. Now, I want to talk about the real enemy in this business. And most traders will not like what I am about to say. The real enemy is not the market. The real enemy is not other traders. The real enemy is not bad luck or bad timing or the manipulators in the big institutions. The real enemy is sitting right behind your eyes. It is your own mind. Fear, greed, impatience, hope, pride. These are the forces that destroy trading accounts. Not market movements, not bad information, not bad information. Your own emotions, the very things that make you human, are the things that make you a poor trader. I watched fear destroy traders who had excellent analysis. They would identify a good trade, place it, and then watch it start moving against them slightly. Nothing serious, just normal price fluctuation, and they would panic out. Then the trade would do exactly what they originally expected. They were right. Their analysis was right. But fear robbed them of the adoption. E-profit quietly and completely. I watched greed destroy traders who had already won. They would make a good profit on a trade, and instead of taking what the market had offered, they would hold. They wanted more, always more. The trade would reverse. The profit would shrink, then disappear, then turn into a loss. And the same trader who was up nicely would end the day down, simply because greed refused to accept a reasonable reward. Impatience is perhaps the worst of them all. Impatience causes traders to act before conditions are ready. They see something moving, and they jump in, not because the opportunity is clear, but because they cannot stand the feeling of sitting still. They need to be in a trade. Sitting on the sidelines feels like doing nothing, and so they trade when they should be watching, and they lose when they should have been patient. Revenge trading is another one. A trader takes a loss, and so it stings. He wants to get that money back right now, today, this very moment. He goes back into the market immediately, not with a clear head, not with careful analysis, but with anger burning in his chest. He is not trading the market at that point. He is fighting the market. And the market does not fight. It simply moves. And if you are fighting instead of observing, you will lose again and again until there is nothing left to lose. The market does not know you exist. It does not care about your feelings. It is not targeting you. It is not trying to hurt you. Every loss you take due to emotion is entirely self-inflicted. That is a hard thing to accept. It is one of the hardest truths in all of trading. But accepting it, truly deeply accepting it, is the beginning of real improvement. The trader who controls his emotions will outlast every trader who does not, every single time, without exception. Let me tell you about patience. Most people understand patience, as waiting, simply waiting, doing nothing, passing time. That is not what I mean. Patience in trading is an active skill. It requires intense focus. It requires discipline. It requires you to sit with uncertainty and discomfort and not act to feel the pull of the market and hold yourself perfectly still until the moment is right. I would sometimes go weeks without making a significant trade. People who knew me would ask why I was not trading. I would tell them the conditions are not right. They would look at me as if I were being foolish. The market was moving every day. There were prices changing every hour. How could the conditions not be right? But they misunderstood what I was looking for. I was not looking for movement. Movement is everywhere. I was looking for clarity. I was waiting for a moment when the evidence was so clear, so strong, so undeniable, that acting on it felt less like a decision and more like a confirmation of something that was already happening. That kind of moment does not arrive every day. Sometimes it does not arrive for weeks, and the trader who cannot sit still during those quiet weeks will force trades that are not ready, and he will pay for that impatience reliably and without fail. I had a rule I followed strictly. I never acted on what I thought the market would do. I acted on what the market was already doing. That is a very important distinction, perhaps the most important one I ever learned. Thinking about what might happen is opinion. Acting on what is already happening is observation. One is speculation. The other is discipline. When a stock was moving strongly in one direction with clear confirmation behind it, that was when I would act. Not before. Not when I thought it was about to move. Not when someone told me it was about to move. Only when the price itself was already showing me, in unmistakable terms, that something real was happening. That is patience, not idleness. Alert, focused, disciplined waiting. I want to talk about something I spent a great deal of time studying. The rhythm of the market. Every market has a rhythm. It does not move randomly, even though it can feel that way to someone who is not watching carefully. There are periods of quiet. There are periods of quiet. There are periods of accumulation where the big positions are being built slowly and silently beneath the surface. Then there are periods of movement where the price breaks in one direction with conviction, as if it has been holding its breath and can hold it no longer. The trader who cannot tell the difference between these phases will be confused most of the time. He will be active when the market is quiet churning through bad trades, and he will hesitate when the market is moving, paralyzed by doubt at exactly the wrong moment. He is always one step behind, always chasing something that has already passed. I studied price behavior the way a scientist studies a natural phenomenon, not to control it, not to outsmart it, but to understand it deeply enough that I could recognize the signs of what was about to unfold. When a stock had been flat for a long time and then began to move, I watched very carefully. How it moved mattered enormously. Did it move with strong volume? Did it hold the move? Did it retreat only slightly before pushing forward again? These were signals, not guarantees, but significant signals that something real was beginning. When those signals appeared clearly, that was the moment to act. And when I acted at those moments, I was not guessing. I was confirming what the market was already showing me. The market is always communicating. Price is the language it speaks. Most traders do not listen. They talk over the market with their opinions, their tips, their analysis, their predictions. They are so bus. Why speaking that they cannot hear what the market is saying? Quiet yourself. Watch the price. Let the market speak. And when it speaks clearly, act. That is the entire discipline, stated simply. I want to be honest about something. I was not always disciplined. There were times in my life when I broke every rule I knew to be true. And every single time I broke a rule, I paid for it, without exception, without mercy, without any grace whatsoever. There was a time a man I respected told me to get out of a trade. I knew I should have listened. Everything I believed about the market was telling me to exit, but I did not want to. I was profitable, and I wanted more. I ignored the signal. I stayed in. The trade reversed. I lost the profits, and then I lost capital on top of that. That loss was not the market's fault. That loss was entirely mine. I knew what I was supposed to do. I chose not to do it, and the market had absolutely no mercy for that choice. None at all. Discipline is not something you can turn on and off based on how you feel that day. Discipline is either something you have or something you are still building. The moment you decide that today is an exception, that today the rules do not apply because you feel confident, or because someone you trust gave you a tip, or because you simply do not want to follow the rule right now, that is the moment you become a gambler instead of a trader. Gamblers rely on luck. Traders rely on discipline. Luck runs out. Discipline compounds. Before I leave you with a final thought, let me share the principles I return to, again and again across my entire trading life, not as rigid laws handed down from above, but as truths I discovered through experience, through loss, through humility hard-earned. Cut your losses quickly. Every time, without hesitation. A small loss now is always better than a large loss later. There are no exceptions to this. None. Let your winning trades develop. When you are right and the market is moving in your direction, do not rush to take the profit. Let it breathe. Let it build. The biggest profits come from having the patience to stay in a good trade long enough for it to become a great trade. Never add to a losing position, simply because you believe. The market does not reward belief. It rewards discipline. Never average down into a losing position simply because you believe. And now I want to talk about something that very few people in this business are willing to admit. I want to talk about loneliness, because trading, real trading, serious trading, is one of the loneliest professions a human being can choose. There is no team. There is no colleague sitting beside you who shares the weight of a bad decision. When you are wrong alone. When you lose alone. You sit in a room, sometimes in complete silence, and the numbers on the screen in front of you tell you a story about yourself that you may not want to hear. And there is nobody to comfort you, nobody to tell you it was not your fault. Because deep down, you already know the truth. It was your fault. It is always your fault. And accepting that, not as a punishment, but as a fact, is one of the most liberating realizations a trader can ever reach. I spent years being angry at the market. Years blaming external forces, the big institutions, the manipulators, the insiders who seemed to always know something I did not. And there is some truth in that world. There are forces in the market that are larger than any individual. But here is what I finally understood. After all those years of anger and blame, it does not matter. It does not matter who is on the other side of your trade. It does not matter whether the game is perfectly fair or imperfectly fair. What matters is whether you are disciplined enough, patient enough, and humble enough to survive long enough to find the moments when the edge is clearly in your favor. That is all trading ever was. Surviving long enough to be present when the right moment arrives. There is a concept I want you to carry with you. I think of it as the cost of learning. Every trader pays tuition to the market. There is no way around it. The market is the greatest teacher in the world, and it charges the highest fees of any school that has ever existed. The question is not whether you will pay tuition. You will. Every single one of you will pay tuition. The question is whether you will learn from what you pay, or whether you will keep paying the same tuition for the same lessons over and over again without ever graduating. I have seen traders pay the same price 10 times for the same mistake. They would lose, recover slightly, make the same error, lose again. A cycle that repeated itself for years. The market never changed. Their behavior never changed. And so their results never changed. Learning from a loss means something specific. It does not mean feeling bad about it. It does not mean studying harder or reading more books. It means permanently, fundamentally changing the behavior that caused the loss. That is the only form of learning the market will accept. I want to speak directly to those of you who are young. Those of you who are sitting somewhere right now, full of fire and ambition, convinced that you are different, that you are smarter, that the rules I am describing apply to other people but not to you. I understand that feeling. I felt it myself at 15, at 18, at 22. That feeling is not weakness. That confidence is not foolishness. Not entirely, but I am asking you, with every honest word I have left in me, to respect the market before it forces you to. Do not wait for the catastrophic loss to teach you humility. Choose humility now, before the price of arrogance is extracted from you without your consent. The traders who choose humility early in their careers are the ones who are still trading 30 years later. The ones who are still trading 30 years later. The ones who wait to be humbled by the market. Most of them are gone, not just out of trading. Sometimes gone in ways that are far more serious than losing money. I have known traders who lost everything and lost themselves along with it. Men who defined their entire identity by their success in the markets. And when that success disappeared, they had nothing left to stand on. Trading is what you do. It is not who you are. You must never confuse the two. Your worth as a human being is not determined by your profit and loss statement. The market will have good years and terrible years. You will have brilliant streaks and humiliating failures. You will have brilliant streaks and humiliating failures. If you tie your sense of self to those results, you will spend your entire life on an emotional roller coaster that ultimately leads nowhere good. Protect your identity the same way you protect your capital. Carefully, deliberately, and with deep respect for what it represents. There is one final thing I want to leave with you, and it is perhaps the most important of everything I have said today. The market will always be there tomorrow. This sounds simple. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but I have watched traders ruin themselves because they forgot it. They acted as if every trade was the last trade, as if missing this opportunity meant missing everything. They traded with a desperation that made careful thinking impossible. The market opens again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the year after that. There will always be another opportunity. There will always be another moment of clarity if you are patient enough and disciplined enough and humble enough to wait for it. The trader who understands this, truly deeply understands it, will never rush. He will never force. He will never risk everything on a single moment because he knows with a calm certainty that the right moment will come again. Preserve yourself, preserve your capital, preserve your clarity, and when the market finally speaks to you in a voice that is unmistakable, clear, strong, undeniable, you will be ready. You will be standing, with capital in hand and a clear mind precisely when it matters most. That is the entire life of a trader. That is everything I have learned.